Welcome, everyone. I'm Chari Elam. This month, I have a celebrity in our midst. I do. His name is Charlie Agar. Hi, Charlie.
Hi, Sherry. How you doing?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm apparently a celebrity this morning.
You are. You're a celebrity, not just to me, but a lot of people. So those that don't know you, and I bet that's just like maybe this many. Tell us a little bit. Tell us a little bit about Charlie Agar.
Yeah, so I'm Charlie Agar. I keep bees in New Braunfels, just north of San Antonio. Um, I'm a backyard beekeeper that grew too fast. So I started out as a hobbyist not that long ago and got into bee removal, and that took off like crazy. I got 200 hives. I do ag leasing, big part of my business. I do tons of bee removal. Got one today after this call. And I do a little bit of teaching. I schedule private classes in my apiary in New Braunfels, and yeah, do all things bees. I like to talk about bees, present to groups, that kind of thing. So
Yeah, and don't you have a TV show?
oh gosh, yeah, I have a TV show. It's awesome. It's called Charlie's Bee Company. Yeah, so since 2017, we a friend of mine and I have been kind of documenting my kookiness and my buddies and I chasing bees around Comal County. And so it spawned season 1 of Charlie Bee Company, which is you can stream it now on PBS, or you can actually find it on my website, charliebee.com. But it's we're working on season 2. In fact, the removal we're doing today will be in season 2. So season 2 has been awesome. We're out documenting other beekeepers. So a lot of the folks you might see on this on the Texas Bee Supply monthly webinar and in the magazine, a lot of these folks we've tapped and are kind of documenting their stories for season 2, which is awesome. So
That is awesome. I know you did something with Blake. I don't know what haven't seen that, but it's so good. Any of our readers and listeners here today, please take a minute and go to charliebee.com. It's incredible. You really are fun to watch, and you are the epitome of how fun beekeeping can be.
Well, it is fun. That's what I love. It is fun. One thing I like about beekeeping is not just I love bees and I love playing with bees, but I actually like other beekeepers. That's the kind of the fellowship of the lunatics, and I've kind of found my tribe among beekeepers. And so, Texas, the Texas Beekeepers Association gatherings. I mean, there's nothing better than swapping lies and arguing with other beekeepers about
trading thoughts. We call that trading thoughts, Charlie. we don't argue, we trade thoughts,
hurling insults at one another. No, it's always fun.
It is fun, and we do have a great tribe, as you put it. It's there are a lot of fantastic beekeepers out there. Very rare to find someone that isn't smiling ear to ear. Isn't it the truth? Isn't it the truth? Well, let's talk about bees.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I really, really want people to hear from you, because you mentioned, I know a good part of your business, or at least a portion of your business, is capturing bees. And so that is, especially in our beginner classes, we talk about that. That's not something you just accidentally do. You learn that trade. It's a trade. And it's an income for those that do well with it. How well do you do with that? Is that that's an every day you're doing that?
Certain times of year, certainly. So in the, when bees start to reproduce in spring, right, that's when the calls come in, or shortly after, right? So swarms move. I catch swarms all the time. I caught a swarm just the other day. So Texas bees will move and reproduce all the time, which is kind of unusual and kind of fun for me. I don't mind capturing a small hive in the fall. We're late in the season, and I'm doing a great big cutout today that has to be done. So those bees are going to have to overwinter, and we can talk about overwintering. But yeah, I have good success. I've gotten much better at finding queens in a removal. I've gotten much more patient. I think I used to, and I still get kind of excited with a bee removal. I want to get in and get there. And I run my vacuum and blah, blah. But
Yeah.
the way I've been doing it more and more lately, and I learned this from other beekeepers. So Bee Man Dan in Houston, I kind of picked up some pointers from him. He's a super bee remover, is to do that initial breach on a cutout, for example, do that initial breach, open everything up. Don't vacuum a bee if it's safe, right? Sometimes I need to vacuum
Correct.
to reduce the number of bees that are stinging. But if I can open the whole thing up and then really just take it apart bit by bit, vacuum more carefully instead of frenetically. Stan Gore, Texas friendly beekeeper guy, he taught me a much better way to do forced abscons, which is forcing bees out of typically a tree. There's a real art to it. Steve Butler, he's amazing at the forced abscond. So you really have, when I'm successful with bee removal, I tune into the bees instead of just like trying to force my will on them, work with their instincts. So forced abscond, perfect example, slow, patient, provoke them, don't freak them out. And then out comes the hive, and if you're lucky, you find the queen. So yeah, I love doing bee removal. I always say I'm going to get out of it. I'm so tired, so old. It's so hot, and then somebody calls me, and I come home from a terrible removal, and I'll tell my wife, "That's it, honey. No more. I can't do it. I'm too old. I'm too fat. This too hot." And
it's too hot in Texas.
It's just miserable. And then somebody calls me and says, "Well, I got bees in my garage." I'm like, "Oh, is it just behind drywall? Maybe I'll come get those bees." So a lot of people grow out of bee removal, and I apparently have not grown out of it yet. So
yeah, well, I think it's probably because you're good at it, and you do love it, whether or not you have a bad one every once in a while. And we never did cutouts, but removals can be, bees that quickly moved into a soffit or something like that, and still a swarmish with very, very little comb. So when you so what is your survival rate? Let's not necessarily talk about right now. We'll maybe talk to that, but in general, what is your survival rate of a swarm?
That's a good question.
Maybe swarm versus cutout. So
swarm versus cutout. So hiving up, I think there's a real art to that. And again, I'm a little bit hit or miss with that as well. And borrowing strategies from other beekeepers. Swarms. So a swarm that, a bivouac off of a branch of a tree that I shake into a box, or often I'll shake those into a bucket, a nice clean white bucket, and find the queen, and then put her in the box and wait, let the bees go in. That's money. So the challenge with a swarm is you've got a queen who's ready, who's on the move, right? So even if you give a nice swarm lots of good resources like drawn out comb, I find sometimes they just don't like it. They didn't choose it, right? They haven't made that democratic choice to say, we love this place, we're all going. So I'll often, it's probably the only time I lock bees in with queen excluder. So I'll often use that queen excluder on the bottom of I'm a Langstroth beekeeper, so queen excluder on the bottom, make sure I know the queen is in there. Sometimes I'll even leave her in a queen clip. If I have her in a queen clip, I'll leave her in the clip for a day, not long, or a roller cage. Those roller cages are little tubes. I'll push that into a frame, give it a day, and then release her. I find if they just get a little time to say, like, start chewing on comb, they tend to stay. Swarm, then they stick around. I have good luck keeping swarms that way. The other is cutouts and forced absconds and that kind of thing. I typically let the bees choose their spot, if that makes sense. I use a bucket vacuum. So not a lot of removers use those, like the Colorado bee vac that pulls bees into a hive box or a hive body. I use a bucket vac. And so then basically I've got a shaken swarm in a bucket. So when I hive them up, I'll put together some of their comb if I have it. That I think is a really important piece. I'll put together some of their larva, eggs and larva. Open larva gives off a really strong pheromone that says, hey, this is home, right? So if I can find some of that, I'll cut that into, I use medium frames and I just wedge those in. I used to use rubber bands. Now I just wedge them in real tight. So 1 or 2 frames of that is all I need. I used to frame up tons of wax. I don't anymore. So I just put 1 or 2 frames, open eggs, open larvae, and then I dump the bees out front, and usually they go in. If I didn't find the queen in the removal, sometimes that's when I see her scurrying into the dark. And I have a pretty good track record of keeping them. I often do it at dusk, just because that's when I finish the job, and that seems to give them that they want to overnight in that box and start to live there. So, but yeah,
they're not going to travel at night. Traveling at night's not their MO at all. You said like a ton of good stuff in there. You don't take honey. You don't put honey in.
I don't put food in the box at all. I put a feeder with a small amount of sugar water. I find sometimes if you put too much just honey and comb, it will induce robbing. So I make it really small. I make it like, hey, you've just swarmed here, get to work. And so I give them just that little bit of comb that's theirs, and then I open feed the rest of the comb to my other hives, that kind of thing. I've heard of bee removers taking capped brood and putting it on top of a strong hive in order to let them clean it out. I've not done that, but that sounds like a good idea too. So
yeah, well, with small hive beetles, it's just it's kind of it's hive specific or cutout specific, really and truly. So do you feed, I guess, the minute you get them hived up, right? You feed.
I find feeding gets them thinking like, oh, there's abundance here. And I'm in a real dry part of the state, so I spend a lot of money on sugar, let's put it that way, just to keep my bees alive and healthy. And I know feeding, they don't get that feedback loop. They don't go out and find voluptuous food and then come back and tell everybody all excitedly. I mean, they treat feeding, I think, like clean up in aisle 5. So it doesn't really inspire them, but it just at least tells them, hey, we have what we need to do this, and this is inviting. So
well, that's all good stuff. Golly, I hope anybody wanting to do cutouts and swarm removal is writing things down right now. I'm sitting here, I'm having this allergy thing, and I'm taking swigs of my honey that sits on my desk.
Oh, there
so
you go.
if you see me cut out because I'm coughing, I'm going, I gotta get my honey out. I really do that, people. So, I don't know about y'all, but I work with honey. So literally. So what are your survival rates? Have you ever really taken log of it? Do you log it?
No, I'm a terrible record keeper with my bees. It's really bad. In fact, right now, and this season has been tough. I had a little health issue earlier in the fall. And I need a backup person. I need somebody to help me. When I'm out, the bees are on their own. So I've got a lot of neglected hives at the moment. But no, my survival rate. So a lot of times I'll do a cutout, particularly a large cutout in a dark space, or I'm reaching in and I don't visibly spot the queen. And so I'll hive up a bunch of bees that are queenless. So I need to monitor that pretty closely and get them combined with another colony. Yeah. Or there's certain times a year where I'll bank queens myself, and then I can say, hey, after 2-3 days, I see no eggs. I'm gonna say, okay, I'll give them a queen. But those bees are sometimes they will split, they'll abscond. Our feral colonies in this part of Texas, the scutellata bees, Africanized for lack of a better word, they are quick to swarm and abscond in general. So they're quick. So if there's something not inviting in those boxes, they're not
going to book it. Yeah. Well, that's part of their MO. I mean, they are swarming, and that's a problem. That's why we were queen and changed the genetics, right?
And you're not recording this or anything, but when they swarm, that means they're going to go move in somewhere else, and someone else is going to call me.
You've got to try. Yeah, that's what we call bait.
I'm a bad person.
No, no, I get it. So what you need is, for the Trekkie fans, of which we are, you need an ensign. You need an ensign crusher.
Yeah.
To come in behind you and be your, that's a teachable thing right there. You could just make that your class in the bee yard where,
Yeah.
they're the ones who come by.
We're growing as a business too, and so they'll definitely, we're looking at some land right now and expansion, and so not huge, but more elbow room. I'm working out of a 2-car garage, so it's suboptimal, and all my bees are remote. I don't keep any bees on land that I own, so we're looking to just get a little elbow room, maybe get a little help for sure. So
yeah,
but
well, and that
don't apply yet.
no, well, that will be lined up by the droves, I'm quite sure. So how do you overwinter a small hive? So odds are you're going to have at least, and I think you've already alluded to it, some hives that are struggling that you've bought stuff. So do you have a plan of this hive is really, really weak? How am I going to overwinter this hive?
Yeah, I take a page out of Blake Shook's playbook on that and say, I take my winter losses in the fall. So my early years in beekeeping, I spent a lot of effort and energy on weak and unsuccessful hives. And I think it's a tendency of new beekeepers to focus on like, oh, this hive's a problem, right? This hive's a problem. I'm gonna just like nurture it and I'll build it up. And I really find that if the bees, if they don't have that volume of bees, they ain't gonna make it. So I get real merciless, like right about this time of year, where I'll pinch a queen in a real weak hive and combine them. I do the newspaper marriage with other colonies. I'll take I tend to overwinter smaller colonies in general. It's kind of my management strategy. So I run 8-frame deeps, and my overwinter ideal is a deep and a medium with a frame feeder in the lower deep. So that's not a huge colony, but they overwinter just fine. So I find if they've got that that bulk of bees, they can ball up and overwinter with. And they also need food, so they need to be heavy. I do the 2-finger test. So you reach to the back of the hive, you lift it up with 2 fingers. If you go whoop, that's too light.
Too light.
If it's like that's not gonna make. So this time of year, I'm still feeding. I'm feeding. People say 2 to 1. I'm feeding as thick as I can make it, basically right now.
Good for you. Yeah.
In smaller quantities to weaker hives that I think will have enough bees to overwinter. And so yeah, I think it's important to be realistic and not try to overwinter teeny tiny hives. That said, I've overwintered 3-frame nukes in the past that had 1 frame of honey and 1 frame of bees and 1 frame of drawn out comb with maybe a little pollen in it. Like, wow, they made it. I have these little 3-frame nuke boxes I got with a feeder on top, and so that they do just fine.
Do you put them closer together? Yeah. See, that's what I've been recommending too. It's just, if you've got a weak hive, to just kind of maybe nestle it up next to a bigger hive, or something that is substantial, or like you say, just stacking them side by side. That's good stuff.
The other one I'll throw out there is I've just started working with Apame, the Apame hives, and I know y'all sell them at Texas.
We do. Awesome hive.
I've gotten to know Korhan and his father at Apame. They're the nicest folks, really like beekeeper focused beekeepers,
Yeah.
And I've just started working with a few of the Apame hives, and for remover, I love the 7-frame nukes. There's a division board that goes in. So just the other day, I caught a really weak swarm, a baseball-sized swarm with a fat queen in the middle of it.
Oh, wow.
And later that day, I did a teeny cutout from South San Antonio from underneath a trailer, and it was the hive was like a small football, like a Nerf football. Those are tiny. That's a tiny colony and a tiny swarm. Not a lot of resources. So I took the 7-frame nuke from Apame, with a divider board. I put one in each side, and then there's entrances on the front and back. So I just make the entrances alternate, and then I'm feeding both of them from the top. And once they build up, I'll see who's stronger, who has a good queen. I might take, if they both build up okay here, I'll take them both and put them in free frame or leave them in those boxes for the winter. If one is really weak, I'll go ahead and pinch their queen. And then there's a way to make the bees get to know each other on the division board. You can turn the knob and then they can smell each other for a few days.
Right.
And then boom, pull the division board out, you combined hives. So it's kind of built in for that. And so they're kind of neat.
That is neat. And you know, that's a play off of the Palmer double nuke system, if you've never heard of that. We had the joy of meeting him at a convention, TVA convention years ago. And that's exactly what it is. It's two small hives with a division board in the middle, opposite entrances. It's a wonderful way to keep bees over winter and to build nukes to feed your bee yard and replenish your bee yard. That's interesting that you're using that. I'm glad to hear it. That's actually a great plug for the product as well. So what's your winter plan? You know, and because winter can't be said without spring following it. So our winter plan matches what the outcome goal is. Where's Charlie Agar with that?
Well, I mean, you're assuming that I'm smart. I don't.
Well,
my plan is always get more bees. Bro, I'm like,
yeah.
I like no. So my winter plan is just like we said, with take winter losses now, get everybody as healthy and fat as I can. You know, in my part of Texas here, we can feed up through Christmas. I mean, if they're taking in nectar, and I give it to them real thick, and I want to get them real heavy. And so, but I have hives they're ready for winter now. I mean, I have hives that are a deep and two mediums, 8 frame, and they're full up. And so I'll also swap some of their resources to get everybody evened out, get everyone solid, and then over winter for our 6 weeks of winter or whatever it is. And always with a mind to spring and doing things like buying queens and making splits. I try to get early season queens as much as I can. Not too early though, you know, end of March, early April, whatever people have. I purchase queens from different sources and then split. I'm going to take my colonies. I make money as a beekeeper per colony, right? So honey is a bonus, and I like to produce honey. I like it. I think it's just fun. I like to share it. I like to go to the farmer's market and talk about bees, and it's a little walking around money. But my business focuses more on having healthy hives that I can lease out. So I'm always interested in making more hives, hoping eventually to start selling nukes. I say that every year, and then I have people just want more bees for ag, so I prefer to manage them myself and sell them. But so yeah, I've not done the sugar brick thing in the winter.
You're gonna have to try. You're gonna have to try.
I think I will, if I take a week hive and put a sugar brick. I've used winter patties in the past, and sometimes I think that's almost for like my own comfort. like a hive I'm worried about, I just doing something to try to make it
Sure.
and then come spring, see who's kicking, who can provide me a little couple friends of brood, and it's split. For my operation, splitting is the key to success.
You said a couple of things, and I want to back up and ask you, because I think I know the answer, but I don't know that our listeners will. So when you say extra heavy syrup, I know that we have in the past, especially preparing some of the weaker hives, we are feeding them extra heavy syrup. We tend to lean towards the syrup that we have at Texas Bee Supply, because it's a very rich syrup full of lots of great yummies in there for bee gut and health. But if you're making it yourself, are you at a 3-to-1, 4-to-1? What are you?
I'm trying to think so I have a 40-gallon tank, and I kind of season to taste in that. I'll put it in as thick as it will pump. So my
That's pretty
small
thick.
soda just it'll stop pumping at a
Yeah.
certain point. So I'll put like, frankly, 40 pounds of sugar in a 5-gallon bucket, and that's real thick.
That's pretty thick. That's probably 4, maybe even 5 to 1.
Yeah.
That's,
So I'm making honey almost.
yeah, you are.
Not
Well,
quite.
that's okay though.
Yeah.
You know, that's good for the bees right now. They're able to consume that, and they can even pack it and not have to do anything to it. And we're wanting to not expend that energy in those bees. We want that longevity of it, those diatomaceous bees, right? Diatoms, I always mess that word up. So then also something else you said is early queens. You kind of went, yeah, I try to get queens early, but then you kind of backed off a little bit. One thing I want to say on that is that this year, particularly 2022 year, 23 is going to be better, is that we had a horrible wind situation in Texas. So early queens really struggled because they weren't being mated well. So that's why I wanted to qualify that could be why it's not so bad to wait till that April queen comes around.
Yeah. And I buy queens from various sources. And so, yeah, I'm not that eager to get them when they're poorly mated or, so I'd love a nice, healthy, fat queen who's ready to get to work. So,
right. Yeah. We don't need that.
The challenge, of course, is our honey season's so short, right? So that's if you have any interest in producing honey, and you're doing splits, you know, the earlier the better, but not to the detriment of the bees. You don't want to, So
yeah, and splits and we all, I think, work towards that. You've alluded to that. We're all working towards those splits for spring. You know, everything it's winter and spring. That's our focus, right? And you said something about sugar bricks, and I have to say, you know, that we're carrying Stan's soft sugar bricks now.
Sugar bricks.
Yes,
that's cool. I saw that.
I know.
Logo and everything. That's really cool.
It's awesome. I mean, it's when I was able to get the inaugural story, the inaugural recipe in the magazine this year. It was like the choir sang, "Woo." I felt so special being able to get that, but hey, y'all try it. I'll send you a pack of it just so that you can say you know what it's like. Okay. What you want to close with? You got anything you want to tell our beaks that good takeaway?
You know, I had a ball at the Texas Beekeeper Association convention. It's always good talking to, you know, new beekeepers, old beekeepers, and it's really, if you're new to this, stick around and get ready to keep learning. That's what I love about the webinar and the magazine at Texas Bee Supply, and I pimp it out all the time.
Good.
That it's 3 years of constantly learning and learning by failing, and not letting that deter you from, you know, keeping on. So
keeping on. And I think you're proof that you don't always have to be good at note taking. And you can do okay. Sometimes it's okay to just have it right here, right? I mean,
you know, sometimes as a beekeeper, I've been accused of being like a cook who gives you a recipe and then you try to make it and it doesn't taste the same. And then you watch that the recipe and they add a little pinch of this and a little dab of that. So I lean more toward the art side of beekeeping than the science, because I'm not scientifically minded. So
right. No, I think I guarantee you I'm on your page with that. And each hive is different, and you really you treat them individually, and you may not do things even twice.
Yeah.
So I think that's very good advice. So that it's being fluid. You know, you just got to be fluid. Go with the flow and be willing to learn, even if you think you kind of know what you're talking about. The bees didn't read the same books that we did. Right. And well, Chari, it's been a joy.
Well,
always.
Thanks for having me. Great.
I want everybody to watch you on PBS.
Stay tuned for season 2 will come out in the spring. So it's probably late spring. So we're working on it right now. So
fantastic. Well, it's so good to talk with you. And I know everybody enjoyed it. Get ready, because I'll be asking for an article in the spring on
Bring it.
swarm removals again.
got it.
So thanks so much, and we'll talk
right.
soon, Charlie.
Thanks, Chari.